Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Off the Tools podcast. As always, it's myself, Wayne Bettess, and Andy Jones. How are we doing, Andy?
Morning. Always got the cup.
Good lad. I'm messing up again. Starbucks again. I'm desperate.
I'll be gutted if I break this cup. I'll be gutted.
I'll get some more ordered for the next retreat. So today we are talking about 9 things that will radically improve your life and business if you actually do them. So I would advise that if you're listening to this, and you can, if it's safe to do so, obviously, maybe make some notes of the key 9 areas that we're going to talk about today. So let's just get straight to it, shall we, Andy? So the first one, you'll hear us talk about quite a lot. I've titled this one, Raise Your Standards, Then Raise Your Prices. So, Andy, do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, so obviously we've always been big advocates for this, but you have to think about the knock-on effect of your pricing structure beyond just trying to grab the customer. So we ran the webinar the other day. A lot of guys really low on the pricing structure, and it was, well, why aren't you charging more? And it was, well, my customers won't pay more. That's one part of what we're getting at here. Well, you've just kind of answered your own question there, that you need new customers. But to go further down the sort of domino effect of that, you're then going to be tied to that pricing structure for all of the aspects of work in the house. So if you're servicing their boiler for 60 quid, when it comes time for a new boiler, you're not going to be able to charge good money for the new boiler because you've got let's say, a cheap customer. There is a little bit of there's nuances to it as well. A lot of the time, lads will over deliver on price, on value, regardless of the price. So a lot of the time, it isn't just about being too cheap. It's also about the amount of value you give to customers. So, a lot of lads you see it on the forums, they'll go rushing out on a Sunday morning because of a long-standing customer has got, the boiler's not working. That is like premium level service, and they're not charging for it usually. But yeah, by charging cheap, you're going to attract the cheap customers, and then you're going to be sort of trapped, for want of a better way of saying it, with that. You can't charge 60 quid for a boiler service for a few years, and then start to educate yourself. And we get this all the time. New lads will come into Off the Tools. They'll have been charging 60, 70 quid for a number of years, and we get the same response of, well, actually, I can't lift my prices because these kind of customers won't pay it. So what they find themselves forced to do is somewhat start over again. So yeah, you think, they think, well, lads think they're building a business, and they're very focused on customer acquisition, which is absolutely the right thing to do in the early stages of business. But a customer acquisition full of cheap customers isn't going to build you a business that's going to grow.
No. No. And a lot of people think that by working harder, they're going to escape that stress trap, don't they? When in reality, it's charging fierce money that is going to help you escape that level of stress and overwhelm, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the most common thing I find with it is the sort of the phrase or anything close to, well, I'm going to go in at a competitive price to build up my customer base, and then I'll grow from there, because they're too scared to take the time. Like we started in our heating business, we started out with a really strong price, and yet it's very difficult to not to stick to your guns and stand your ground with that pricing, because you get a lot of no's, because people are again used to paying that cheap price and getting more value for it through the sort of a failing of other guys. But it's imperative that you stick to your guns when you do that, because otherwise, as we've just said, you end up with a diary full of cheap customers. And where'd you go from there? There isn't really anything you can do from there other than replace those customers. So you've kind of wasted your time filling the diary with them anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. Most of the guys in this trades industry, they don't have a skills problem. It's a mindset problem, isn't it? You know, they think
Yeah.
grafting and working hard is going to solve the problem, but it just isn't the solution, is it? And I think it might have been you that mentioned this phrase, that like, if your pricing doesn't make you slightly uncomfortable, then you're probably too cheap, aren't you?
Yeah, and if you converge, like, again, and that spills out to, you can track that through as many metrics if you want. So whether you want to say, if you're not getting a lot of no's, if you're not getting people saying, well, you're way too expensive, things like that, then yeah, you're definitely doing something wrong, in my opinion. Again, it kind of depends what you want to achieve from your business, and potentially from life as well. But if your conversion rate is really high, then you've got a problem. You're too cheap, basically. Like, and that's again, I think fundamentally, and this is the recurring theme with our conversations with our mentees, is that they don't really know any of the business side of things. So it's only once they start learning from me and you, and from the other lads who have been doing it for a while, they start to realize, actually, this is a business. This isn't just plucking a price out of thin air. You know, and I've used that description before of, if you were to sit down and work out exactly what you need to charge per hour. Let's say you started a new business tomorrow and you worked out what you need to charge per hour, and all the data came back to say, oh, actually, we need to charge £100 per hour. You wouldn't go out and start charging people £80 an hour. You just wouldn't bother.
No.
So that's the challenge, that guys are operating without the knowledge. So they think, oh, I'll just do 60 quid, 70 quid, and I'll get a lot of yeses, and lots of yeses is good because it keeps me busy. But you end up, just as we said before, you just end up with lots and lots of cheap customers who really restrict your ability to push forward with them.
Yeah, definitely. So that is point number one: raise your goddamn prices, people. Let's move on to number two, because we've got 9 to get through. That, trust me, you know, these 9 haven't just worked on theory. That, you know, me, Andy, and many of the lads in Off the Tools have implemented each one of these. So please make sure that you're paying attention. So the next key point to discuss here is pick a lane based on your strengths, not ego. So what I mean by that is, if you're good at installs, you're fast and efficient, focus on that. If you're brilliant at service and repair, put your attention on building that as the business. And ultimately, stop saying yes to absolutely everything. Agree?
100%. And again, I'm super biased on this. So, you know, me and Wayne have both said the same thing many a time. We're not particularly brilliant engineers. You could argue that makes us better as coaches. You know, those who can't teach, as they say.
Those that can't do teach, they say, don't they?
I remember when back in my Thai boxing days, it was generally the common theme. Most of the best coaches were relatively average to good from the competitive side of things. And I am now a believer that it's because you only have so much capacity. And I think, and you know, we had a mentee up yesterday, up with some one-to-one coaching with me and my admin team. And I said the same thing to them when they were asking, well, oh, you're quite good on the software and you're good with this and you're good with that. And I say to them, it's because I'm not the best engineer at all. I was good at breakdown and repair, and that was it. Like, it took me 2 days to do a combi swap kind of thing. So it was just like, so what happens is you then start to shift into, as you put it, your own lane. It's just transpired to be that my own lane is coaching, mindset, and now becoming software based as well. But if you're, as you've said, shit at installs, stick to that as well. And that also actually then it's somewhat transferable because, as I say, our business is predominantly service and repair. And because that was the thing that I like, the one skill set that I had as an engineer, it also then puts me better positioned to own and run a business that is focused on that, because I kind of know what I'm talking about with that, you know what I mean, as opposed to you know, a really complex older S-plan system and there's a low loss header and shit like that, and I don't know, like, because that's not my jam, you know what I mean. That's why our business is domestic, UK based service and repair stuff, so that then you can own that. If you're shit at that stuff we've just spoke about, if you're really niche and you're really good with big houses with big systems, you know, 2 boilers, 3 boilers, multiple tanks, and that's your jam, then that's where you need to lock down on. Leave the basic stuff that I've just been talking about, your 30 kilowatt combi and your semis, and you know, niche down on that. So not just on your own skill sets as an engineer, but what you can then potentially transfer into a business, and have a niched business doing that as well.
Definitely, because not all work is good work. Some work will just keep you busy and skint, won't it? You know.
Yeah, it's if you try to take on everything else, and as I've just explained, if you're not sort of skilled in everything else, that's when more mistakes happen. So if you start trying to do, you know, start trying to break into the bathroom world, but you're a breakdown engineer, you're going to struggle because you're not going to understand the, you know, all of the in-depth stuff and what's gone on behind the wall, and you know that board's short and the tiles have popped off the board and you're not sure where the leak is, or the timber's warped underneath the floor so the tray's dropped, and you know, all these sort of things. There's a lot of complexity trying to just like, and again, it's a bit like we were just talking about before with this, the pricing side of things. More, as you say, more is not always better. So just trying to soak everything up for fear of, because most guys really struggle to say no, don't they? Like you said before, it's so scared to hear a no or say no to someone. So that's the scared to hear someone say, no, you're too expensive. So they stick to being cheap. And they're too scared to let a customer down because they think they'll lose that customer. You know what I mean? They might have been servicing the boiler for a bit and changed some rads and changed some taps. And then they say, oh, can you change this, you know, change my bath for me or whatever it is. And then they're like, oh, I don't want someone else to go in because then they might steal that customer, and you know what I mean. So I'll have a go.
And then you just end up in a vicious cycle then of not staying in your lane, you know. So just to reiterate that key point number 2 is pick a lane on your strengths, guys. Okay, it's so important. Moving on to number 3, one of mine and Andy's favorite subjects. So build recurring revenue that buys you breathing room. So if you're in a business that can have a recurring income model, then you've got to be bloody doing it, haven't you? You know, we could do, well, we have done, and we will do more on this in depth, but you know, a few key points about recurring revenue. You know, service plans will bring you a steady flow of cash. So that improves your cash flow position each and every month. It means that when you're quiet, you don't have to panic as much because you've got that safety net of that recurring revenue coming in. And ultimately, it increases the value of your business, doesn't it? You know, because there is some actual tangible asset within it rather than it just be at the whim of a phone call.
Yeah. Signed contracts that if you wanted to sell the business, you've got, as you say, something tangible. But ultimately it's building some stability because, you know, a lot of guys get scared about growing the business and hiring staff. But if you've got a recurring revenue, you can offset those monthly outgoings with the recurring monthly incoming money you've got from this recurring revenue. And it can be implemented in almost any business and any trade business. So for example, I know a guy who's a detailer, who's done our vans and done my cars and that over the years, and was chatting to him the other day, and that would be a really easy one to put the service plan in. You get a
Yeah.
monthly care clean, yada, yada, yada. And that would be something that most guys wouldn't even think you could implement it on something like a detailing business, monthly top up. The more premium guys who do the ceramics, you know, an annual top up of your ceramic coats and yada, yada, yada. But it can be put in anything.
It can,
you know,
like
lads who,
I'm in discussions with my son's girlfriend. She's a dog walker and dog sitter. And that's like the next iteration of her new business. She's like, you know, is to lock these people in, you know, pay X amount a month and you get 4 walks or 5 or whatever it is. So you've just got to be a bit creative. If you're not in, obviously, the plumbing and heating industry, it's like so easy to do.
like
So people can be a bit scared if they're not in that industry. But even electrical, you know, smoke alarm tests, carbon monoxide alarm tests, PAT testing, all of these sort of the EICRs, you know, all of this sort of stuff can be put into some sort of package. Drainage, you know, like even to the point of like kitchens, you know, making sure that a kitchen is looked after once a year, all the handles are tightened up, cleaned up, you know, whatever. There is so many. Yes, it's not going to be as easy for those industries that maybe it's not the norm in, but it wasn't the norm in plumbing and heating. It wasn't the norm in TV. Just look at Netflix and stuff. Do you know?
I just want to interject there, just from, again, my experience as well as my research. And we have touched on this before on when we did the long podcast. There's what's happening in the world, but predominantly in the UK. There's the number of people who've gone through higher education is increasing, and the number of people with, let's call it, quote unquote, real world tangible skills is reducing. So what you're finding is that the people who have gone through higher education and maybe in a reasonably high salary job, but then lack those tangible skills, are simply outsourcing that kind of stuff. You know, I think I read something the other day about someone had paid a handyman in central London to put a shelf up or something. It was charged like 500 quid because it was like right in central London, and he did like a same day service, blah, blah, blah. So you're getting people who like, oh, I don't know how to do that, so I'll just outsource it. So even something as simple like I changed, you know, for those who don't know, I've got 6-year-old twin boys, and they're both big lads as well, and they're just like a whirlwind through the house, and they open a kitchen cupboard and they're hanging off it like, and they're 30 odd kilos and blah blah blah. So we've got them double hinged things that are weak as shit. I've replaced them about 8 times now. So something like that, you're saying about a kitchen fitter, you could have something in place where when the door drops, when the hinge snaps, out you come, bang, fix it. You know, there's a guy in I know this is the other end of the scale, but there's a guy who is based again in the centre of London, and he only has 5 clients. He's a heating guy, but he only has 5 customers. That's it. That's all he has, 5 customers. And they basically pay him, I believe it's about $5,000 a month each, because these are uber wealthy people, and he is ready on call for them. And meeting's not working, bang, he's round, and he's got all the parts in the van just for them. So there's other end of the scale, where you wouldn't even think that would be a thing. Like, but there's people who either don't know what they're doing, or they've got enough money to say, I want you either, you know what I mean? Like, this is people who don't care about spending that money. But again, there's something for everything. Carpet cleaning, annual carpet refresh, you know.
There's so many opportunities in recurring revenue. It's unbelievable. So to make sure we keep on time, just to recap that. So key point number 3 is building recurring revenue that will buy you breathing room in your business. We're going to move on to number 4, which again is another key point that we talk about a lot. And that is systems will beat hustle. Get the right software for the business that you're running. You know, software in this day and age is the heart of the business. It's the beating heart. You know, you should be doing your quotes through it. You should be doing your invoicing through it. You should be managing your diary through it, job cards, job reports, you know, payments, communications, everything should run through centralized systems. And more so, customers are now starting to expect that level of service. You know, if you're not sending out booking reminders, booking confirmations, you know, you're falling further and further behind. People like us, you know, we use multiple softwares to elevate our business and make our life easier and be able to outsource roles that maybe if you're not using a system would be pretty impossible to do. Systems will like reduce friction, reduce mistakes. Importantly, you know, if you have a set system that of how to booking a job, then it's very hard for someone to make a mistake with that, isn't it? Which then on the other side of that makes it a lot easier to outsource. You know, systems are just fundamental in this day and age, aren't they?
Yeah. And again, you know, we're in 2026 now, and there's a lot of guys, and they'll be like, oh no, I've never needed software, I don't need to worry about it. But you didn't previously. Now you absolutely fucking do. Like, there's no way of getting around it. And I was chatting to my office manager about this yesterday, and there's a couple of key points that we discussed on it. Number one is we have probably saved having, I would say, 2 more members of staff in the office by having the software, because of the how, you know, not only the automations but the efficiency, especially something like Quotient, where you can spend an amount of time to get it ready, build it out to the work that you do, and then it's ready and it's a bit evergreen then in moving forward. The other thing, and this was a prevalent point of that, it's my belief that fast forward over the next 10 years and the ability for the sole trader guy not using any software to still operate will be slim to none, in my opinion, because, and that's not a failing of them as an engineer, that is going to be customers aren't willing to take the old school way anymore. That's what me and you are obviously working hard to try and get through to people. You don't really have a choice, and being ignorant to it is not an option. You don't have a choice. You have to, even if it's just a job management software and something to deal with the inbound inquiries, but people just won't suffer it. Like you say, we live in an Amazon world. You know, when your parcels come in, like we had some parts come to the office yesterday via DHL, I think it was. We got told a few days before what day it was. We got the reminder on the day. We got a tighter window in the mid-morning, and then we got, you know, Jim, your guy, is coming between 11:52 and 12:52. Then it's like he's here. Then it's been delivered, and then reception turns up with it. But it's like that's what people unfortunately have come to expect now. So if you don't start to implement that, what will actually happen is someone will maybe ring you, they don't get hold of you, or they'll ring you and book a job with you, and you're doing it the old school way of, I'll come to you on Friday, Mrs. Smith. I'll see you then. It'll probably be the afternoon. And then that's it. They're like, oh, is he coming? Is he not coming? Oh, it's 4 o'clock. Is he still coming? I don't really know. And then some people, it will start with people not really being happy with that, to then people just not accepting that. So then it'll be, actually, well, I rang him and he said he can probably come next Friday. But then I rang this company who said, well, we can come to you on Friday. It'll be a morning slot. We'll give you an arrival window. And then when your engineer's on his way from his previous job, you'll get a text message. And if you want to, you can track him. Serviceman, obviously. You can track him if you want. And then it's like, oh, that's like what I experienced.
Yeah, just takes it all to a new level, doesn't it? Takes it completely. When you
order an Uber, So then it's like, what'll happen is, he will have lost that customer then forever, because it's like, well, actually, this is what I want, whether he's a better engineer or not. You know what I mean? Like there's the time for the time where you can really shine as just being a better engineer, doing a good job and charging a good price and building a business that way is gone. It's not enough now. You have to have the other things in place that we've spoke about so many times before. And you
hit a very important point about being ignorant to it. And I think Blockbusters is probably the prime example of that, isn't it? You know, back in the day, if you wanted a movie, you went to Blockbusters. We all would have grown up. Most of the people listening are going to probably be mid-20s early 30s, early 40s, you know, we would go to Blockbusters, rent the movie. What did they do? They were ignorant to the fact that the online world was taking over. They even had the chance to buy Netflix, I believe, for like a few million quid. And their belief was that they didn't need to iterate their business. They didn't need to change the model that had served them for 20, 30 years. And look at them now, you know?
The guy that there was actually makes it worse because there was another thing for that with Netflix that they offered to go into partnership with them.
Oh, really?
Netflix to stream, to download the content that they owned and stream it as a business together, and they laughed them out the door.
Yeah, I think Toys R Us did something similar with Amazon. They had the chance to be an exclusive toy distributor for Amazon and decided not to do it. And obviously, two businesses that have gone in.
Yeah, and they were, you know, Toys R Us like was the thing, wasn't it? When we were younger, like definitely. We had a massive one near IKEA, near the big IKEA in Warrington, massive one. And it was our big experience as well, wasn't it? Like, it was
all part of the fun. They had such a market domination, didn't they? And then within a few small years and a technology revolution, it snookered everything. I want to end this little section on that statement there, Andy. If your business only works when you're present, you don't own a business, you own a job. I believe you've said that many times. I have said it many times. So I know that might not be nice to listen to, you know, if you're on the other end of that statement. But it's so true, isn't it? And systems are one of the major players in taking you from having a job to actually having a tangible business, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, like, obviously we're both very passionate on this because we don't want lads in the trades to come unstuck, for want of a better way of saying it. And putting some software in place is a very, very easy and, in my opinion, low cost way of allowing you to operate in a very similar way to where you've already been operating, you know, still being, you know, nice to customers, doing a good job, good reputation, etc., but allowing you to still keep up with the other guys. Because again, to finish that conversation I had with my office manager, it's my belief that there will be a rise of, like, so what will happen, you'll end up with certain areas where the dominant players in the game are the small to medium trade businesses with, you know, let's say sub 10 engineers, an office team and all the software. You'll get a handful of them in a certain area, and the guys that were just the one-man band, old school style guys will just sort of phase themselves out. So just one, and I know I'm running a bit over on this, but again, we are quite passionate on it. It's just what I will say is to the guys that are just a sole trader, one-man band style guys, look at your revenue, look at your profit, for the last, let's say, 5 years. And if it's not gone up, you've got a bit, or at least stayed strong and just maybe slightly crept up, that should allude you to that you're getting sucked in, or what we've just been talking about is starting to happen. Because what you'll find is maybe you're not getting quite as many customers as you were before, because these are getting picked up by the guys that are doing it with software and doing it properly, and bringing their trade business into the modern world. And what, again, without going into the realms of inflation and things like that, eroding your profits, if they're not at least being similar, then that in itself must allude you to that there's a problem starting to happen. You know what I mean? If you can't quite replace that car that used to change every 4 years, now it's every 5 years. You know what I mean? That holiday, might not be able to go on that holiday. That should be enough to say something's going wrong. And if I don't step in now and change something, what will happen is I'll reach a point where it's like, I've got no other option now. I don't have any little bit of savings to implement some software. I don't have any extra time to educate myself on stuff. It becomes too late. And then you're left with, actually, you either go and get a job for one of those businesses we've just spoke about, or you come out of the industry. So, yeah.
Definitely. So that's key point number 4. Sort your bloody systems out, guys. They're non-negotiable. Moving on, we're just going halfway through, so I'll just quickly recap. So point number 1 was raise your prices. Point number 2 was pick a lane that suits your strengths. Number 3 was building recurring revenue. And number 4 is have systems in the business that help you run it. So moving on to number 5, which is get paid up front and lock in the paper trail. So we've all been there where we've done jobs, customers haven't known what's included, or there's a dispute. And, you know, without the proper paperwork, without proper deposits, it can all get very, very messy. So it's so important that you're sending out quotes that have your terms and conditions applied, that have a physical accept button or signature or some way of them committing to that process. And obviously, ultimately, you know, we should be taking deposits. In my business, we take deposits on any job over £500. Some businesses will insist on payment up front in this day and age. You know, we're all used to it. We order stuff online, we pay, and then it turns up. But yeah, getting paid, or at least a portion of the payment up front, is very important, and making sure that there's a solid paper trail in that business so that if a dispute occurs, you're covered. What's your thoughts on that?
So we actually do take payments up front on any job that's perhaps a line item based job. So anything that's kind of cut and dry, we would take payments up front. So something like a boiler breakdown, which is for us a line item job, we would take payments up front for that. A boiler repair, again, that's what you're saying about when you supply materials, again, payment up front. And this is another one that a lot of guys tend to struggle with, because they say, oh, well, either I've never done that before or my customers wouldn't pay it. This again falls into making sure that you've got a bit more of a substantial business. Because again, yeah, if you're a sole trader, one-man band, and you don't have any online presence, the customers, it's a new customer, they don't really know you from Jack, it's going to be harder naturally to take payments up front. But if a Google search of your business produces lots and lots of results, and you're, you know, even easier if you're a limited company because you've got a company's house, there isn't any reason why a customer should be concerned. You know, if you've got, you know, thousands of reviews online, and you're well established, you shouldn't be taking the risk of not getting paid up front, especially when you're supplying materials, because that's costing you money, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? So most of the places, as you say, take these payments up front. Like, you know what I mean? Big businesses, they all take payments up front. Why are you not doing the same? Again, it's trying to sort of pivot your mindset from thinking like sole trader, tradesman, or I'm just a tradesman, to actually, I've got a business. I need to run it like a business, which requires payments up front. And A, stops the cash flow problems, and B, and this is a controversial thing, but from, again, experience, when you wait till job completion to take payment, you've lost all of your control of that job. So all of the horror stories you hear of lads like, you know, I'm going to go and, like, lads who've done a driveway for someone, oh, they've not paid, I'm going to go and rip the driveway up, because the customer's being nitpicky about this tiny little bit of tolerance which is allowed in this game, blah blah blah. So yes, it requires the correct software and terms and conditions and acceptance, but if you get paid up front, you can then remove the emotions from a hiccup after the job. You know, you get it a lot with builders, don't you? They finished a big job, the customer owes them 10 grand of not paying because, you know, this door's not on straight or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Then the emotion comes in then, because you're like, well, shit, that's 10 grand. I need that to pay my mortgage. Flip that on its head, you've already been paid. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, I'll pop round, you know, next Tuesday, we'll get it fixed, and we'll all be happy, because you can operate logically then. So, you know what I mean? But also it's about that transparency. So again, to use the boiler sort of breakdown analogy, what we take payments up front for, that was born off the fact of we were getting a lot of work from like landlords and property management agents who perhaps don't really know how boilers work. They've probably never been on site and saw that particular one. And it was always like an expectation for you to fix the boiler. So again, you've got to get that T&Cs and the quoting software in right. But we were finding we'd go out, they knew it was a fault find. We'd then send the invoice and it'd be like, well, is it fixed? Well, no, this was a fault find. Oh, I thought you was going out fixing it. Whereas when, again, payments up front, the right software and acceptance, things like that. So yeah, in my opinion, most jobs can be paid up front.
I agree. And if you're not taking payment, whether it's full payment, deposit, and you're not having it agreed in writing, ultimately, every time you're doing that, you're gambling, aren't you? You know, if you're going to spend 300 quid on some materials plus your time, so not only are you gambling 300 quid of your hard-earned money, you're also gambling the hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be, in the hope that they're going to pay, which, yes, in most cases, most people are honest and most people will pay. But what happens when that 10 grand one doesn't pay and you can't pay your mortgage at the end of the month?
Yeah.
You know, that's when you need this policy in place, isn't it? Because it's for when things go wrong. You know, yes, I trust that you're going to do a good job, but not all customers are honest. Like not all tradesmen, you know, if you're a rogue tradesman, then don't listen to my bloody advice, because I don't want you ripping off people. But I'm trusting that people that are listening to this are honest, hardworking people. And this isn't about stitching up a customer. This is about protecting yourself and being a shrewd business person, because we're here to make money, guys, you know, and we have to safeguard that with the right processes, with the right systems, everything we've spoke about. And having a paper trail and taking deposits or payments up front is one of those key points, isn't it?
Yeah, because again, like to repeat what I said before with the different viewpoints on it, is that, you know, we all hear about the cost of living, etc., etc. That affects us as well. As well as the customers. A lot of people look at it from a customer perspective, or they can't maybe afford that because of the cost of living, but it's the same from our end. And another sort of common thing you might get, especially if you do a bigger job, is that customers might want to try and defer paying you that invoice until they've been paid. Perhaps, you know, we're on the 28th today. It's payday for most people on Friday. If you were to do that old school way, go out and do a job today and send an invoice, majority of people will probably hang on till Friday to pay you.
Yeah.
So and then what happens if an unexpected bill drops on the doorstep? Again, you're probably going to be last. Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, I'll sort it out for you next week. Just get payments.
And sometimes it can just be forgetfulness, can't it? Like the customer, you done the job Monday or Tuesday. In their head, they were going to pay you on Friday. When their payment hits, they forget because the kids are screaming in the car. You know, they get home and life gets in the way. Before you know it, it's Monday or Tuesday of the week after, and they still haven't paid. You're left out of pocket. Yeah, it's just a no-brainer.
And the emotion sets in, then, and you start flapping, and you're wasting a lot of energy and personal time then trying to chase it up afterwards, which usually takes more effort than just getting paid up front.
Yeah. So to end that, point number 5, guys, is get paid up front where possible and lock in a paper trail on every job. Moving on to point number 6, hire admin before you think you're ready. So admin, in my opinion, isn't a cost. It's actually leverage. Okay. One good office person will instantly free you up. Okay. So don't underestimate the value that an admin person can do in the business. I know, Andy, obviously you're a huge believer in this. Do you want to elaborate a bit deeper on why hiring an admin before you think you're ready is important?
Yeah. So just to again, shift back to a prevalent thing that you said before about staying in your lane and sticking to what you're good at. If you're a fucking awesome boiler installer, why are you answering the phone? Why are you booking jobs in? Why are you trying to go out and do pricing quotes? And you know what I mean? It's like stick to what you're good at, and you will generate way more revenue by utilizing that time. Let's say you're spending for a figure 10 hours a week doing admin, whether it's, you know, payment related, booking jobs in, sending out emails, whatever it might be. You can make way more you know, the reality is a heating engineer makes more money than an admin person.
Yeah.
That's the reality. That's perhaps
no hiding from that.
the simplest way to look at it. If you can make more money fitting, fixing boilers, swapping fuse boards, whatever the trade that you're in, stick to doing that. Stop answering the phone.
Yeah,
like that's probably the simplest way that I can try and contextualize it.
I think the biggest thing here for a lot of tradesmen is they see it as a cost. So they see the admin person as a 20, 25 grand cost. So that's what scares them, that, you know, they look at their income, they look at what they're doing in their business, and they think, how can I find 25, 30 grand, whatever it's going to cost you, to pay for that? And that ultimately is the biggest obstacle, because once you shift that mindset that it's not a cost, it's actually leverage, it's actually being prudent to spend that money, because if you find the right person, and caveat here, right, you've got to spend time with these people, you've got to train them. You can't just employ Mary down the road, throw her in the deep end with half an hour's worth of training on how to do things, and then expect the business to run. You know, Andy's smiling because you know, we have a few lads that maybe have fallen into that trap in the group, and hopefully they're quickly learning the lessons. But if they're trained correctly and they're given support and they're given freedom to, you know, I don't believe in like regiment style management. You know, there has to be room for that individual to have a little bit of freestyle, have a little bit of their own emotion and their own their own qualities, you know, to come out. Then you will then just see, if you do those things, you will see so much benefit, won't you? And look, you know, just your business alone, Andy, how much has it progressed since you hired office person number 1 and then office person number 2?
Again, most guys are going to put all of their focus onto getting more field staff, more engineers out on the road, more technicians out on the road, because they see that for what it is, which is a direct revenue driving role, admittedly. However, I will categorically say for my business, it was the non-revenue driving admin role that we're talking about that has made the biggest pivot in the business, because it's just, there's so many variables that you really don't think about when you're hyper focused on more revenue driving, such as, like, if you just look at, like, and again, funnily enough, I was in my meeting with my office manager yesterday, we looked at this, we just literally pulled up the last 5 reviews on one particular platform, and every single one of them used, no, I shit you not, every single one, communication. So that's the software we've just been talking about, and the admin we're talking about, admin team we're talking about now. Communication, every single one, fantastic communication. Never experienced this level of communication before. And then one in particular, in the same lineup, referenced one of the members of the office team by name and how friendly and whatnot they were. But again, I'm much like yourself. I'm a big advocate for letting them sort of own the role, because again, that's an extension of staying in your lane, isn't it? So that, you know, some guys will take someone on and go, well, this is the script, I want you to work to this. And you're just going to end up with a pissed off admin person who's like, I don't really like my job. Where you say, well, this, like, I don't know if it's you gave that analogy of putting the like going playing bowling, putting the bumpers up. And then say, well, this is the space to work in. Don't go outside of there. Don't go outside of there. But all of this space in between is for you. Do what you will with it. No, that analogy works for life as well. You know, I read it in a book. I can't for the life of me remember the book it was in, but it explained that principle in, like, if you live by a busy road, right? And this was to do with like freedom, right? And you let your kids out in the garden, but there was no fences, right? And they could go anywhere. So they could go to the river down there. They could go over the busy road. Is that the sort of freedom you want to have? Or is it better to have some level of security, so boundaries that are yours, safe and secure, and that person can then experience the freedoms within those boundaries?
It just felt relevant to sort of bring that up, because I think putting guardrails in for admin is important, because it gives them space, but not unfiltered space. But you can also leverage that in your own life, have certain boundaries that what you're willing to do, how many hours you're willing to work, etc., and have that structure to create more freedom for yourself within that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other points on hiring admin?
I'll say this to so many of the lads. Again, my own perspective on it, and this is something that really surprises people. And again, something I've seen on the forums, a lot of like lads saying, "Oh no, you can have five engineers per office staff." 99% of the time, that's incorrect. Although it does depend on the type of work that you're doing. But usually you're looking at, from what I can see, a 2 to 3. So let's call it a 2.5 to 1 ratio, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you could, if you had 5 field staff, you're going to need 2 members of the office team.
I would agree. Definitely for a service-based business.
Yeah. But even like, if you've got, let's say a bathroom business where you're doing a lot of bathrooms, and there is a required input of a lot, they probably require a lot of communication. Customers coming in or like these tiles are like these or whatever. Same scenario, but for a service-based business like ours, where the lead volume is very high, then there is a lot of phone time and a lot of quote sending as well. But again, it's freeing up that time. Like I will always be the advocate for us. It will always be a 2 to 1 ratio.
Yeah,
for us.
Well, I'm just thinking back. So when I was at my biggest and I had 10 vans on the road, I had a full-time showroom manager. I had 2 girls in the office. My wife was part-time, so that's 4. So I'd say I had 4.5 when you include like the stuff that I was doing, because I was like the managing director. So I wasn't out on the tools. I weren't quoting. I was just working in the business. So a similar like 2 to 2.5 ratio to the team I did back then. That was like 10, 12 years ago. So I definitely agree. So to move it on, because otherwise it's going to end up into a massive too long of a podcast and people wouldn't stop listening. Number 6, key point number 6 is to hire admin before you think you're ready. And just last little point on that, stop looking at it as a cost, okay? Because it really isn't if it's done correctly. Moving on to point number 7, which is market consistently, even when you're flat out, okay? Busy businesses market themselves 24/7, 365 days of the year. Quiet periods in your businesses are caused months in advance. There's a lag to it. So by marketing consistently, you will limit the amount of quiet times that you have. What I see, you see, with all the lads that we work with, is people get busy. So they stop advertising, they stop marketing. That wave starts to crash out. Then they go quiet. When you're quiet, it's too late. You should have been marketing for work a month, 2, 3 months before. And I see it all the time. And if your business keeps going up, down, not only is it exhausting, it puts a lot of pressure on you as the business owner, doesn't it? To find that work. And the simplest solution is to consistently market. Look at all the big businesses. Do you really think that Apple, Amazon, McDonald's, do you think they need to spend millions of pounds a month marketing? As in, like, they're busy, they're generating revenue, but they know that if they stop that and they lose that momentum, they will then hit a downward spike. And in any big business, and in any business, no one wants a downward spike. So marketing consistently is probably the easiest way to reduce the highs and lows. You're never going to find a trades business that doesn't have the odd up and the odd down. There's always going to be, especially like heating, you know, we get quiet periods during summer, we have huge spikes during winter. You know, that's seasonal. There's limitations to how far you're going to be able to control that curve. But by marketing consistently, you're giving yourself that best opportunity to not get to those quiet periods and have to panic and make rash decisions. What's your thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, and the other side of the coin as well. Marketing is often one of the first things that people trim when they're quiet and the purse is tight, which is again biggest mistake. You know, marketing / advertising has always been a crazy thing in the trades and construction industry, because you've probably heard me say this phrase a million times. It proper grinds my gears when guys say, I've never had to do any advertising or marketing and I'm flat out, and they wear it like a badge of honor. Because, and it grinds my gears, not from them personally, but just a lack of education on why that's such a negative thing. You should, as you said, 100% true, always be running marketing, always, never let it go, because it will mean that even if you don't plan to really scale your business, you can go either start to increase your pricing or you can then start to be more selective of your work. You know what I mean? If you've been in the game for a while, and let's say you're 60 and your body's a little bit beat up because you've been doing loads of installs, and you go, you know what, I really just want to move to service and repair now. How are you going to do that if you're not marketing down that channel in a way where you can start to then hand pick the kind of work that you're doing? So it's more than just growing a business. And that's what, again, so many guys think, well, I don't want to scale and grow a business, so I'm not going to do any marketing. I'm happy being on my own, being the local guy. That's fine now. But it's like when you say, well, wouldn't you like to make a little bit more money? Wouldn't you like to be doing the kind of work that you either like and enjoy or you're the best at? You know what I mean? Some guys like just doing plumbing, for example, but they find themselves fitting boilers or bathrooms because they feel like, well, that's what we have to do because that's what's coming in.
Yeah.
You know, if you just want to start doing, you know, reactive plumbing work, for example, then you're going to have to do marketing to bring that in. So yeah, there's far more nuances to marketing than just what most guys think, which is getting busier or growing a business.
So one of the biggest things that I see, and I have seen for the last 5 to 10 years, is the turning it on and off like a tap, you know? So when they're busy, or it works, like you said, in both ways. And that's like, I guess it's sort of like habit, isn't it? That like, oh, you're busy, so sod it, I'm going to stop doing the advert here, I'm going to stop doing that, and vice versa. When you're quiet, you might be like, oh, I can't spend that money. But turning things on and off, you just lose the momentum, and it's so frustrating because I know from experience and working with so many different businesses over the years that the ones that succeed market consistently. You know, they don't turn it off at any panic or any high point or low point. They keep it solid. And I think that, like, to sort of go full circle on that comes down to knowing the numbers in the business, because if you understand the numbers correctly and you set aside money for marketing, then you don't need to think about turning it on or off. You've sort of budgeted it in the costings of the business. So there's no real excuse. And those that seem to turn it on and off are the ones that probably don't have a handle on their numbers as well, because they don't know what they should be spending or where they should be spending it. So I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. So I'm going to try and bring it back into the key points here that we're talking about. But
the deep on marketing, really, isn't it? Because again, like, I'm trying to think how I can streamline it a little bit. But again, I'm trying to think now. so the thing with
marketing, often Andy goes quiet, lads, enjoy that.
Because we're under a bit of a tighter time frame on this one, so I'm trying to think about it. So again, with marketing, too many guys look at it as super binary, like, oh, well, if I'm putting £100 in, I want to get £200 out, for example, when it comes to marketing. and they want to look at it from a very strict cash flow perspective. Well, I spent this much in this month, but I got this much out. Was it worth it? No, I'll bin it off. Without looking at all of the other variables, you've gained a new customer. That's customer acquisition. Are there other jobs? You know, you might have heard the phrase foot in the door. That's giving you a foot in the door to other realms within the property. You're then also going to probably get some reviews from that customer. The marketing's probably also going to grant you access to another review platform. You know what I mean? If you're on something like, I know, Rated People, for example, that is a high hitter on a Google search of an individual business, which also then displays your reviews. Loads of things like that we spoke about many, many times before, of when it comes to marketing, you cannot just look at it as 1 + 1 equals whatever I've got from it kind of thing.
On that note, before you segue into what I think is going to be point number 8, point number 7, make a note, market consistently. I've stopped Andy there because point number 8 is think lifetime value, not one-off jobs. Okay. And this fundamentally shifted everything for me. You know, when I started to look at what leads cost me, I was doing it binary, like you just said, Andy. You know, I was looking at the beginning, I was looking at it's cost me 40 quid to get this lead. I have to go to 3 of those leads to get a sale. So it costs X, Y, Z. When I started to look at the lifetime value over a longer period, and what I mean by it, so for those that don't know, I'm sure I've discussed it before, but not everyone listens to every episode. So I'll try and rattle through this quickly. Lifetime value is an estimate. Okay. So it's not perfect, but ultimately, if you acquire a customer, you should not only acquire it for that one job. That person should then become a customer of your business and use you again in the future. I like to use a 5 to 7 year time frame to estimate what that person might be worth to me. Okay. So in a very easy example, let's use a boiler service, or let's say an electrical check, one or the other, you know, something that's like you go in, you do that job, right? If you've done that job right and you've implemented everything that we've already spoke about, that customer should then come back year after year. Okay. So let's say, use round numbers. Let's say that job is worth £100 and you can do that for them five years in a row. Okay. That value of that customer is now £500. Okay. So if it cost me £40 or £100, but I know that if I do my job right, on average, I'm going to get at least 5 more jobs out of that person at the very least. You know, I'm underestimating there. Then you can look at your marketing and you can look at the costs and the runnings of your business in a completely different light, because you will be willing to spend a far amount more to acquire that customer if you embrace the lifetime value. And yes, in a smaller business, it is definitely more difficult to have that longer term view. But of the businesses that I believe succeed in the trades industry, they are the ones that are looking at lifetime value, because that ultimately is the secret sauce. It's why the big companies can spend millions, you know, on marketing. Look at Box, for example. They knew that their model would acquire market share, acquire that customer based on a lifetime value, that they're going to get repeat work, other services, etc., etc. So they could blow all of us small companies out of the window because we couldn't afford to keep up with them. So there are limitations to what you can spend on it, but fundamentally understanding what lifetime value is and stop looking at it as a one-time job for a customer will revolutionize your business. Would you agree, Andy?
Yeah, in every way I will agree, because again, that's always been our hyper focus, and it's very difficult to not look at the numbers that are right in front of you. Let's say your monthly revenue for X number of jobs. It's super difficult to try and look beyond that, because again, guys are generally just fighting fires month by month in most trade businesses. But again, it's intrinsic to also being selective of the work that you take on. What we said a little bit earlier, you absolutely need to try and focus on that, because it has so many knock-on effects. You know, the angle that your business is going, how you're progressing forward, the marketing side of things that we've just spoke about. There's a lot of variables that you really need to think about. And if you want to, even if you just want a steady bit of a growth in business, you absolutely need to focus on that. You can't just look at job per job per job, which again comes down to the quality of the job that you're doing as well. Like we had, so one of our lads was one of our newer lads was out on site the other day doing a service on a boiler, and this customer had someone in while he was there to fit a shower screen, and he found it so funny. He rang me and video called me, right? So you'll like this one. The customer had a P-shaped bath. The guys have turned up and fitted a flat shower screen, straight shower screen, right? So it looked shit for a start. And he's like, have you seen this? Like, he's video calling me. I was like, what the fuck's that? But then on top of that, they left all the rubbish on the landing.
Oh, God.
Bin bag full of rubbish, a metal trim that they'd folded up and just put on the floor, and then the box off the screen and gone.
Yeah. That customer ain't going back to them, are they?
No, not in a million years. Like, so they're just like the opposite to what we're talking about. They're absolutely not looking at lifetime value. So it's not just the job, the kind of work that you do, how you have the back end, etc. It's also the time on site, which most guys really pride themselves on. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. So key point number 8, think lifetime value, not one-off jobs, really is fundamental. Moving on to number 9. So the last point of today's session, which is upgrade the man, not just the business. And what I mean by that is, you've got to be looking after yourself fundamentally. You can't do any of what we've spoke about today and in previous episodes if you're not focusing it on your sleep, your health, your fitness, your own mental health and headspace that you've got. Because if any of those are out, guess what? Your performance is just going to dip. And guess when your own output declines, the business affects, your family life gets affected. You cannot scale a business or even improve a business if your life is in chaos, whether it's health, mindset, whatever it is. It fundamentally leads you to bad decisions if you're burnt out and you're stressed and you're not healthy. So looking after yourself physically, obviously everyone knows what they should be doing. If you don't, spend a bit of time researching basics of health and fitness, but we should all be moving more and eating less. They're the general rules of trying to keep a healthy body. But don't neglect what's up here. The biggest asset that you'll ever own sits right between your temples here, which is your brain. Okay. And your mindset. The mindset is ultimately what is going to determine if you actually listen to today and go and take action and try and change that mindset and look at things in a different way, or whether you're just going to go back to that comfy blanket, of doing what you've been doing for all these years, hustling around in that hamster wheel. I know we obviously, mindset and everything and health and all of that is a huge topic for us in Off the Tools Alliance, because it fundamentally is the fuel that the business needs. So if you can't pour in good energy into the business, it's going to fail or at least slow down. What's your thoughts on all that, Andy?
Yeah, so obviously we did the longer one on mindset the other week, but this is, again, I'm going to struggle to put all of my thoughts into a small window of this, but I personally believe mindset is almost everything. And this is probably one of the most problematic areas in the trades and construction industry, because it's something that many guys really, really struggle with, because it is often born from a lack of self-worth. I've said before, I spent some time operating within a property-based industry, and that's the opposite end of the scale. There's a lot of arguably overconfident people, but the mindset side of things, and when it comes to pricing and being willing to really push out of the comfort zone, these are people who are quite happy to jump on social media, lots of you know, videos and content and with themselves at the helm and unfazed by it, which again is just mindset based, because they're like, well, this is what I want to achieve. I'm not going to let my own being a bit shy stand in the way. No, this is what I want to achieve. And it's all the various, you know, ins and outs of that is generally born from mindset. But yeah, if you're not dialed in upstairs, then you're not going to achieve the physical out, you know, out on site or whatever it is side of things. But it just extends into everything, you know, your goals, what you want to achieve, your pricing structure, how your business looks, how you talk to people, whether it's customers or your peers, your family. It's just like, and you're right, as you say, we really push on this heavily within Off the Tools, and it's going to be a really big part of obviously the higher level mastermind that we're going to be implementing next year, with a huge, because what the beauty of once you elevate your business and you get the admin staff we were talking about before, you get your pricing structure right, you get the types of work that you're saying yes to dialed in, it will start to free up that personal headspace to then think a little bit more. Actually, I never really thought I could get here, but now I'm starting to see an actual business form. What can I do with my life and my free time to really get this to something that I'd never really expected I could achieve it and create something better for my family? My kids' future is always this common thing. Well, I want to leave something for my kids. Well, if you don't change some shit, you're not going to get there. If you're still on the tools at 65 because you have to be, are you going to be leaving anything for your kids? Are you going to, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a really deep, nuanced topic is mindset, but to me, it's the foundation.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed today's podcast. I hope you guys have too. Just to quickly recap on the 9 key points that we think that will help revolutionize your business. It is ultimately raising your prices, picking a lane and sticking to your strengths, building some level of recurring revenue into your business, having solid, reliable systems that become the heartbeat of the business, getting it paid up front where possible and locking in a paper trail to everything that you're doing, hiring admin, leveraging your time ultimately, marketing consistently, thinking about the lifetime value of a customer, and ultimately upgrading yourself as a person. I believe, and I know from the data and from the lads that I've worked with over the years, that if you take action in each one of those points today, you cannot fail to see improvements. So please take this information, get out there, and ultimately nothing changes unless you take action. So please take action on this. If you're still a little bit unsure on how to do anything, what to do next, you know, me and Andy are here. We're here to help. You know, you can contact us on the emails that are on the screen now. You can go to the website. Even better, you can become a member of Off the Tools Alliance, where you get to work with me and Andy, you know, week after week, month after month, and start to implement on all of this knowledge that you're gaining. On that note, I'm done. Andy, you finished? Got anything else to say?
I'm done. I'm never finished, but you know, we'll save that for the next one.
Lovely. It's been a pleasure, lads, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a good one.